Don Show. The news you need to know. Now, here's Jen and Don on AM590. The Answer.
Well, they let us out of the studio and into Ontario at the Doubletree for the Michelle Malkin book signing. Her brand new book, Open Borders, Inc. We've got a crowd here. It's time for for you guys to let our audience know that you're here. Let's hear it. I can't tell you how great it is to see live faces doing the radio show, because most of the time I'm getting to stare at the brick wall of the studio. How many of you watched the Democrat debates last night? No, you didn't. Really? You didn't watch? Hey, Sun Tzu said, know your enemy. So let me ask you this. Who do you think can beat Donald Trump? That's right. Who do you think is going to be the Democrat nominee? Elizabeth Warren. Who else? Hillary Clinton? Yeah, I think there's a zero chance. I love Dr. Sebastian Gorka's answer to this at the AM590 town hall. Everybody, right? Dr. Gorka, how many of you listen to his show? Exactly right. Who do you think the nominee is going to be? Sebastian Gorka said, it doesn't matter. How did I do? I'm trying to get his accent down a little bit. Welcome to this very, very live event. We have almost a full house. A few people are going to be straggling in here between now and 7 o'clock when the actual conversation with Michelle Malkin unfolds. And then at about 8, we'll do a little Q&A with the audience, give you a chance to get your questions answered. And then about 8 o'clock, we'll do a book signing for those of you that didn't have the VIP tickets. But we're gonna go through, since you guys obviously did not watch the debates last night. I think there's a couple of things I think that are important to cover, because I bet you in our live audience there's a number of people that like to exercise their hashtag 2A. How many Second Amendment supporters are there here? Exactly right. Well, here's what Beto O'Rourke had to say about his plan for guns in America if he is the president.
The epidemic of gun violence in this country. We're less than 100 miles from Dayton, Ohio, where 2 months ago, a gunman killed 9 people using an AR-15 style weapon with a high-capacity magazine. Congressman O'Rourke, in the last debate, you said, quote, hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15, your AK-47. But when you were asked how you'd enforce a mandatory buyback, you said police wouldn't be going door to door. So how exactly are you going to force people to give up their weapons? You don't even know who has those weapons.
Look, we're going to make sure that the priority is saving the lives of our fellow Americans. I think almost everyone on this stage agrees that it's not right, and as president would seek to ban the sale of AR-15s and AK-47s. Those are weapons of war. They were designed to kill people effectively, efficiently on a battlefield. You mentioned the massacre in Dayton, 9 people killed in under 40 seconds. In El Paso, Texas, 22 were killed in under 3 minutes. And the list goes on throughout the country. So if the logic begins with those weapons being too dangerous to sell, then it must continue by acknowledging with 16 million AR-15s and AK-47s out there, they're also too dangerous to own. Every single one of them is a potential instrument of terror. Just ask Hispanics in Texas. Univision surveyed them. More than 80% feared that they would be a victim of a mass terror attack like the one in El Paso that was targeted at Mexican Americans and immigrants, inspired in part by this president's racism and hatred that he's directed at communities like mine in El Paso. So I expect my fellow Americans to follow the law, the same way that we enforce any provision, any law that we have right now. We don't go door to door to do anything in this country to enforce the law. I expect Republicans, Democrats, gun owners, non-gun owners alike to respect and follow the law.
Well, let me ask you this. If it was so easy for people to follow the law and turn their guns in, how come people don't follow the law and not shoot other people, right? What do these people not get about following the law? People will break laws, and that's the problem we have right now with some of the events that happen. If they're not following the law with regards to other people's lives, what makes him think people are all of a sudden going to turn in their guns? He expects people to follow law. I expect people to follow law. You guys expect people to follow law, treat each other the way that we want to be treated. But unfortunately, we know that doesn't happen. Joe Biden dealt with an issue regarding his son. Interesting timing. Hunter Biden. There were a lot of memes that went through Facebook. Where's Hunter? My favorite one is Kim Jong-un looking across the demilitarized zone with binoculars saying, has anybody seen Hunter? Well, interesting timing to finally get Hunter Biden on the record about what went on with him and the Ukraine and this Ukrainian gas company. The morning of the debate, they rolled him out. And here's what Joe Biden had to say about defending his son and what he's going to do if he's the Democrat nominee.
If it's not okay for a president's family to be involved in foreign businesses, why was it okay for your son when you were vice president? Vice President Biden?
Look, my son did nothing.
Look, Joe Biden had a number of those things. We're going to play another one in a moment, but there were a number of times that Joe Biden just was at a loss for words.
If it's not okay for a president's family to be involved in foreign businesses, why was it okay for your son when you were vice president? Vice President Biden?
Look, my son did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong. I carried out the policy of the United States government in rooting out corruption in Ukraine. And that's what we should be focusing on. And what I wanted to make a point about, and my son's statement speaks for itself. He spoke about it today. My son's statement speaks for itself. What I think is important is we focus on why it's so important to remove this man from office. On the 17th, look, the fact that George Washington worried on the first time he spoke after being elected president that what we had to worry about is foreign interference in our elections. It was the greatest threat to America. This president on three occasions, has invited foreign governments and heads of government to get engaged in trying to alter our elections. The fact is that it is outrageous. Rudy Giuliani, the president, and his thugs have already proven that they, in fact, are flat lying. What we have to do now is focus on Donald Trump. He doesn't want me to be the candidate. He's going after me because he knows if I get the nomination, I will beat him like a drum.
Yeah, I'll beat him like a drum. I want to see that happen. Honestly, I think right now, if you're a hardened Democrat, if you're still on that side of the aisle, you're sizing up these candidates, thinking, who in the world has the mettle to be able to take Donald Trump on? Do you remember when during the 2016 campaign, 4, 5, and 6 campaign events a day? What if it's Bernie? I mean, is Bernie even going to be, God bless him. I don't wish ill health on anybody, but oh my gosh, he's just coming off of a major health issue. Biden continues right here. He talks about lies. Interesting how he addresses the Hunter Biden issue.
Mr. Vice President, as you said, your son Hunter today gave an interview, admitted that he made a mistake and showed poor judgment by serving on that board in Ukraine. Did you make a mistake by letting him? You were the point person on Ukraine at the time. If you can answer.
Look, my son's statement speaks for itself. I did my job. I never discussed a single thing with my son about anything having to do with Ukraine. No one has indicated I have. We've always kept everything separate. Even when my son was the Attorney General of the state of Delaware, we never discussed anything. So there'd be no potential conflict. My son made a judgment. I'm proud of the judgment he made. I'm proud of what he had to say, and let's focus on this.
Right at the top of now, CNN didn't get this one wrong. Right at the top of their fact check of the 4th Democrat debate is Joe Biden saying, I never talked to my son. They fact check him. Wrong. They gave him 4 Pinocchios. I don't think CNN gives out 4 Pinocchios, but Hunter Biden and his dad not talking about. Can you imagine? How many of you have kids? Would you actually have a conversation? Your son's about ready to get a board position, possibly paying $50,000, upwards of $160,000. We now know because of the work of John Solomon from the Hill. And you don't have a conversation with your son about that, and you're the one in charge of the Ukraine and the investigation that's going on, and you get the Attorney General of the Ukraine deposed. You didn't talk to your son about this? Come on. All right. So there were some more interesting lies. Here's Tom Steyer. Now, Tom Steyer's been organizing across the country this impeach Donald Trump. Here's what he says about the income gap.
You are the lone billionaire on this stage. What's your plan for closing the income gap?
Well, first of all, let me say this. Senator Sanders is right. There have been 40 years where corporations have bought this government, and those 40 years have meant a 40-year attack on the rights of working people and specifically on organized labor. And the results are as shameful as Senator Sanders says, both in terms of assets and in terms of income. It's absolutely wrong. It's absolutely undemocratic and unfair. I was one of the first people on this stage to propose a wealth tax. I would undo every Republican tax cut for rich people and major corporations. But there's something else going on here that is absolutely shameful. And that's the way the money gets split up in terms of earnings. As a result of taking away the rights of working people in organized labor, people haven't had a raise. 90% of Americans have not had a raise for 40 years. If you took the minimum wage from 1980 and just adjusted it for inflation, you get $11. It's $7.25.
That billionaire got his math wrong. We are live from the DoubleTree Hotel in Ontario with Michelle Malkin. This is the Jen and Don Show on AM590 The Answer.
Welcome back to the Jen and Don Show. Visit our brand new website. Log on to jenanddonshow.com today. Now, here's Jen and Don.
We are back live from the DoubleTree Hotel in Ontario with Michelle Malkin coming in just mere minutes to do a live show on the both on the Jen and Don Show, and then here to have a conversation about her brand new book, Open Borders, Inc. At the Democrat debates, they led off with what they should have probably finished up with, a little red meat from Democrats. Here's a montage of the very first question at the Democrat debates, the fourth in a series about, what do you guys think about impeachment?
2 years ago, I started the Need to Impeach movement because I knew there was something desperately wrong at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Impeachment is the way that we establish that this man will not be permitted to break the law over and over without consequences.
Our framers imagined this moment, a moment where we would have a corrupt president. And our framers then rightly designed our system of democracy to say there will be checks and balances. This is one of those moments.
I support impeachment, but we shouldn't have any illusions that impeaching Donald Trump will, one, be successful, or two, erase the problems that got him elected in 2016.
We have to impeach this president, and the majority of Americans not only support impeachment, they support removal. He should be removed.
The president has left the Congress with no choice. And this is not just about holding the president accountable for not just the things emerging in these investigations, but actions that he has confessed to on television.
It is absolutely imperative we go forward with impeachment. I hope that he is impeached. But I think what would be a disaster if the American people believe that all we were doing is taking on Trump.
I swore an oath to do my job as a senator, do my duty. This president has violated his. I will do mine.
If the House votes to impeach, the Senate does not vote to remove Donald Trump, he walks out and he feels exonerated, further deepening the divides in this country that we cannot afford.
We do not hold him to account if there is not justice. Not only have we failed this moment, our Constitution and our country, we have failed everyone who has sacrificed and laid their lives down on the line. And we cannot do that.
Well, I said from the beginning that if, in fact, Trump continued to stonewall what the Congress is entitled to know about his background, what he did, all the accusations in the Mueller report, if they did that, they would have no choice but to begin an impeachment proceeding.
I would like to hear from him about how coddling up to Vladimir Putin makes America great again. It doesn't make America great again. It makes Russia great again.
This is about Donald Trump, but understand it's about the next president and the next president and the next president and the future of this country.
Because a president 10 years or 100 years from now will look back at this moment and draw the conclusion either that no one is above the law or that a president can get away with anything.
What altered universe are they living in? Remember the 2 volumes of the Mueller report. It wasn't that long ago. Remember the Mueller report after 2.5 years of so-called Russia collusion story, year after year of this investigation, news story after news story. It doesn't matter anymore. We've moved on from that. It doesn't cut. That was their first impeachment report. 675 days. 2,800 subpoenas, 230 orders for communication records. That's your cell phones, your texting. They issued 50 orders authorizing the use of pen registers to monitor electronic communications, 13 requests from foreign governments. They interviewed 500 witnesses. They had 19 lawyers, 40 FBI agents and analysts, and of course, the 19 partisan investigators that were part of Mueller's team. And they found nothing. I mean, you would think after 2 years, and here we're listening to these, the real problem here is that the folks in that audience, the folks that were tuning in that are going to be voting on one of these knuckleheads, they're not paying attention to the facts. They're not paying attention to what actually happened. The biggest economic boom in our country, unemployment is low in so many different ways. And they think that this guy deserves to be impeached because he's doing the job. I love the meme, and here's why they're impeaching Donald Trump. I love the meme that I've seen circulate. Maybe you guys have shared this among your with your friends. The picture of Donald Trump that says, "They're not coming after me. They're coming after you. I'm just in the way." That's why when I talked earlier about opening up Twitter accounts, getting busy in social media, we need to support the president. Twitter is his primary communication device. This is actually where the part of the battle is being fought. And I'll tell you what, I've learned a lot from Twitter. I've learned how to craft a 240 character message. You really get good at actually talking through that medium. Now, somebody else was accused of being a Russian asset. Do you know who that was? Can you believe that there was actually an MSNBC analyst that was on in the morning yesterday that was accusing Tulsi Gabbard of being a Russian asset? Here she is giving CNN and the New York Times a hard time.
Congresswoman Gabbard, last week you said that American troops should get out of Syria now. You don't agree with how the president handled the withdrawal. What would you have done differently? How would you have pulled out troops without the bloodshed we're seeing now?
Oh, first of all, we've got to understand the reality of the situation there, which is that the slaughter of the Kurds being done by Turkey is yet another negative consequence of the regime change war that we've been waging in Syria. Donald Trump has the blood of the Kurds on his hand, but so do many of the politicians in our country from both parties who have supported this ongoing regime change war in Syria that started in 2011. Along with many in the mainstream media who have been championing and cheerleading this regime change war. Not only that, but New York Times and CNN have also smeared veterans like myself for calling for an end to this regime change war. Just 2 days ago, the New York Times put out an article saying that I'm a Russian asset and an Assad apologist and all these different smears. This morning, a CNN commentator said on national television that I'm an asset of Russia. Completely despicable. As president, I will end these regime change wars by doing 2 things. Ending the draconian sanctions that are really a modern day siege, the likes of which we are seeing Saudi Arabia wage against Yemen, that have caused tens and thousands of Syrian civilians to die and to starve. And I would make sure that we stop supporting terrorists like Al-Qaeda in Syria, who've been the ground force in this ongoing regime change war.
Now, it takes a lot of chutzpah to tell somebody who is serving her country in the military, who is on your side, and with no evidence, nothing. This is straight up Saul Alinsky character assassination because she dared go off the reservation and disagree with the narrative of the Democrat Party. That's why she won a 40% of the Drudge poll. They did a poll today. Conservatives mostly go through Drudge. She got 40% of the vote. She was by far the winner because of what she said there, as well as she was the only Democrat candidate to say impeachment's not the right way to go. It's just going to further divide the country. She's exactly right. The more that Nancy Pelosi continues this kangaroo court, should they actually ever get to a point to where they decide to take a vote, it's only further dividing the country. But I'll tell you what, it's getting more and more people up off the couch and onto the playing field and strapping on the uniform and getting involved. And that's what's great about this impeachment movement. We need more people getting onto the playing field. Glad that you guys are here being a part of this. Now, there was a lot more talked about, obviously, a 3-hour debate. We can't cover everything. But one of the things that I think did happen last night is, once again, we saw completely out in the open what the Democrats' goals are for socialism in this country. Elizabeth Warren has a plan that she won't even acknowledge is going to result in a tax increase. Here she is trying to say, not so much, a tax increase for the middle class.
Senator Warren, to be clear, Senator Sanders acknowledges he's going to raise taxes on the middle class to pay for Medicare for all. You've endorsed his plan. Should you acknowledge it too?
So the way I see this, it is about what kinds of costs middle-class families are going to face. So let me be clear on this. Costs will go up for the wealthy. They will go up for big corporations, and for middle-class families, they will go down. I will not sign a bill into law that does not lower costs for middle-class families.
But is there a tax increase? They went after her and after on that. She would never say that. There was just a study, and it was referenced in the debate, $33 billion over the next 10 years it's going to cost them in order to implement this vision they have of Medicare for all. It would bankrupt this country. $30 to $3 billion a year. That's more than we actually pay the military. 1 minute left. You guys are great. We're going to come back on the Jen and Don show live from the Ontario DoubleTree with Michelle Malkin in the house, live on the Jen and Don show. You guys are great. Let's hear it from you.
Social media? Yeah, so do we. Search Jen and Don Show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
It is the Jen and Don Show live in Ontario at the DoubleTree. And we've got a very special person with us right now. She's the lady that has brought us this amazing book, Open Borders, Inc., Who is Funding America's Destruction? Michelle Malkin in the house. Welcome to the Jen and Don Show. Welcome to Ontario.
Thank you. Wow, what a welcome. Appreciate it.
Let's start with this, Michelle. You have you have been to places that we haven't. You've worked with people that we haven't in the trenches. You've been out to ICE facilities. You've been doing this a while. You've got 7 books now.
Yes.
I can't tell you how many articles. You have really been a part of helping us to understand what's going on. When I talk to groups publicly, one of the things that I'm saying now, as a result of probably the presidency that we have, the president who's in office, that we have lost the republic. I firmly believe the republic is gone, and it's our job to win it back. The media is gone. The entertainment industry is gone. The bureaucracies we're seeing right now, we call it the deep state, but we're seeing what the bureaucracies are capable of in our country at the federal level. And we're seeing what Gavin Newsom is capable of at a state level.
I like that. I'm gonna steal that.
And if we're paying close attention, we're seeing what's going on in the state and counties, especially here in California. But I honestly believe between the media, the entertainment industry, and of course, academia, and a lot of people here are activists on the school issues here in Southern California, I believe that the republic is gone, and it's our job to win it back. Your thoughts?
Well, it certainly does look grim when you have that litany of civic and public institutions that have been thoroughly infested and hijacked by the social justice left, the open borders propagandists. But all is not lost. And that has long been my message for the last 25 plus years that I've been out of the closet as a conservative American journalist. And it is the grassroots that I've always been in touch with. And I got my start in newspaper journalism in Southern California. And it was those fissures that I was beginning to see long time ago, 25 plus years ago, over the issue of immigration enforcement and sovereignty. And that's why I've dedicated such a large part of my career to that. Open Borders, Inc. is the 7th book I've written, but it's the 3rd on immigration enforcement and national sovereignty issues. And all is not lost, because although you look at California and how it's radically transformed over the last quarter century, you all are still here. You all are still keeping up the fight. God bless you. And despite Hollywood, despite all of that Democrat money, despite all of these left-wingers who've taken over the NFL and the NBA and the entire media, President Trump won in 2016, and we need to make sure that he's reelected in 2020.
That's right. And California's going to do their part, because what a lot of people around the country don't know is that during the 2016 election, Californians made millions of calls into those swing states that Brad Parscale navigated the campaign through that resulted in the electoral victory. And guess who is the head of Donald Trump's campaign now? That same guy, Brad Parscale. He's identified 17 states that are potential swing states, and a number of offices right here, even in Southern California, that are key to taking back Congress in the 2020 election. Montgomery County. We have heard a lot about Montgomery County recently with, the crimes that have happened there. That county, talk about an infested county. Now, that butts right up against Washington, D.C. Montgomery County is the county in Maryland just north of Washington, D.C. That county government is bound and determined to keep illegal alien criminals in their midst, and it's wreaking havoc with the residents. But what I learned from you that I didn't know is there's an organization in Montgomery County who had a very unlikely leader who now occupies the spotlight in a very interesting place. Tell us a little bit about Montgomery County's Casa de Maryland.
Yeah, so my investigative mantra for this book, and so much of the work I've done over the last 25 plus years, is that you have to follow the money to find the truth. And everybody in this room and who's listening to your show is aware of the large uber presence of George Soros in the open board. Yes, it's okay to do that.
That's right.
Yes, let it out in the open and the Open Borders, Inc. infrastructure. And he used Montgomery County, Maryland in the Beltway as sort of his test case for funding these so-called community organizations that are dedicated to obliterating the difference between legal and illegal aliens. And so Casa de Maryland, which was headed by the now chief of the Democrat National Committee, Tom Perez, also a former Obama official.
And by the way, he led off the Democrat debate last night with a big speech about, all the things that Democrats need to accomplish. He is the head of the DNC.
Yes. And as head of Casa de Maryland, he lobbied for illegal alien in-state tuition discounts, driver's licenses for illegal aliens, mass amnesties for illegal aliens. And of course, that is now the fringe has become the mainstream of the Democrat Party. That's why you saw all the hands being raised for Medicare for all for illegal aliens. But we don't even have to go to Montgomery County, Maryland, because of course, California was the canary in the sanctuary coal mine.
You're absolutely right. And we have a brand new law that is doing, they're out of the closet. And I think that they know this is part of their timeline, part of their plan was to have this stuff coming to fruition right now. But with Donald Trump in office, he has literally scraped the protective coating off of all of these institutions, and we're beginning to see exactly what we're saddled with. And that's why I say it's time to act like the republic is gone, because for the sacrifice that our forefathers, both in the revolution and throughout all of the wars that and lives that have been lost, spreading freedom and liberty around the world, knocking back tyrants, we need to start acting like it is lost and doing what we need to do and win it back. Donald Trump's primary tool for communicating with us is what?
Twitter.
Amen. You have a Twitter account.
For now.
And that's why everyone here needs a Twitter account, because one day there is this thing called the cancel culture and deplatforming that's going on. You've fallen victim to a little bit of that. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But while we have Twitter, while we have the opportunity to communicate and amplify the president's message, how important do you think it is that everybody in America that supports Donald Trump get a Twitter account?
Well, it's vital. And it's a tricky thing because, of course, by using Twitter, you are, in a sense, endorsing and promoting the Silicon Valley agenda. But what does President Trump do? It's jujitsu, right? He uses this platform. They can't stand it. That's why they're cracking down. Just this week, they announced new rules that will apply to all world leaders. And what they're doing is trying to capitulate to Kamala Harris, who has called for Twitter to censor President Trump.
California's gift to the rest of the country.
Right, when he sets off all of their triggers. But there is strength in numbers. And you remember how Cory Booker said that he was Spartacus? No, we are Spartacus.
Yeah!
Right? We have to have strength in numbers.
Yes, we do. Twitter is an important platform. Now, I mentioned the cancel culture and deplatforming. You just kind of alluded to it where, we get removed from social media, from these things. Many activists use organizations like Patreon to raise money. They're kicked off once they start becoming effective. But this cancel culture actually impacted a very unlikely place in this country. I never would have thought that a Trump organization would have capitulated to the likes of the SPLC and the Council for American Islamic Relations and canceled an event that you were the keynote speaker of. This was going to be November 7th. Tell us a little bit about what unfolded there.
Correct. I have a great friend, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with her incredible patriotic work. Her name is Brigitte Gabriel.
Yeah.
Act for America. One of the most clarion and vigilant voices against the spread of radical Islam and Sharia in America. Act for America has been around since 2007. It is one of the most renowned and respected of grassroots organizations. There are more than 1 million members, and she's done important work across the country opposing the barbaric practices of female genital mutilation, of honor killings. She did a very important analysis of middle school textbooks, for those of you who are education activists, in whitewashing the violent jihad ideology within radical Islam. So she has an annual banquet every year, and she had already secured Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida, as the venue for our event. I was going to be the keynote speaker. And of course, there's a confluence of agendas in what I expose in Open Borders, Inc. and the work that she does every day. Because groups like the Southern Poverty Law Center, and yes, please boo.
Yep.
As well as the Council on American Islamic Relations, their partner in speech squelching crime, together have targeted some of the most important combatants in the fight for America and American sovereignty. And unfortunately, the SPLC put out one of its hate watch intelligence bulletins talking about our event, which was then regurgitated by the stenographers at the Miami Herald. And the Trump organization panicked and unfortunately canceled our event. And Brigitte has appealed directly to our president, and I hope he listens.
Now, here's what we're going to do tonight. I already talked to the folks that were here a little bit earlier, and I encourage those that don't have Twitter accounts to open Twitter accounts tonight, because we're going to take pictures of us at this event. And I've asked everybody to tweet those pictures directly to Real Donald Trump, @Real Donald Trump, to let him know what happened, because I don't know if he knows or not yet. But we need to push back on that. And that's why social media can be a very effective part of our voice. So tonight, we're going to engage in a little bit of activism. I believe that when we gather together in groups like this, it's great to come together and have meetings. But it's also important that we use these opportunities for activism and moving the needle a little bit. So tonight, I want to encourage everybody to, if you haven't got a Twitter account, the person next to you does, and they're active on Twitter, you guys make sure that that person gets a Twitter account set up, if only to tweet the picture that they take with their camera. So we're going to do that, and we're going to tweet that to you and to Real Donald Trump. And And I would encourage you at your other book. We're going to do this tomorrow night in Fullerton at Angelo and Vinci's, which is sold out, by the way, which is great news. Absolutely. We're going to do that tomorrow night. And if you're out there listening, if you don't have a Twitter account, get one, open one, and take a picture of Michelle's book or go to the web somewhere, download a picture of it and tweet it to @RealDonaldTrump and say, hey, this has got to stop. Your organization cannot cancel an event like this with these two amazing people. So you guys encourage the people at home to open up a Twitter account if they don't already have one. Give them that encouragement.
Thank you.
All right. In our final moments in this segment, we're going to come back and wrap up, and then they're going to clear the platform up here, and we're going to sit down and have a conversation with Michelle Malkin. If you're just driving home and you're driving down the 10 freeway and you're frustrated with traffic, there's still time to get off the freeway, come to the DoubleTree in Ontario and get some tickets to enjoy, get the book, obviously, and be a part of this event. We've got a couple of chairs left in the back, couple seats up front. We're looking for people to get off the freeway and come in. Michelle Malkin, we so appreciate this work, everything that you're doing for the cause. We're going to dig into this starting at 7 o'clock and go through what's included in this book. In our final moment, for our listeners at home, why did you write this book? What was the inspiration for it?
Well, there was a very distinctive inspiration for it. And it was earlier this year when the illegal alien caravans were beginning to escalate again, as they had, yes, you can boo that too. And they've been escalating, of course, under the Trump administration. And I would be asked in a 3-minute cable news interview, well, where's this coming from? Who's funding it?
Hard to explain in 3 minutes,
yeah,
right?
3 minutes is really 90 seconds, which is really 30 seconds of time. So I sought to put all of the information I could, as much as possible, between two covers, and ended up with a nearly 500-page book, the longest of the 7 books that I've written. And I hope it's something that will be used, not just as a doorstop or to decorate a coffee table, but used especially as we head into this next election cycle. People need to know what we're up against.
This is our operational guideline. This is the information you need so that with those brand new Twitter accounts, there's a lot of material in here you can tweet out. Let me tell you, there's a lot of stories. There's a lot of facts. You can just go through this book. You could probably generate pretty near 50,000 tweets out of this book if you wanted to.
That's an idea.
There you go. Let's see who's the first to get to that. Would probably enjoy a sit down with Michelle Malkin. This book is replete with facts. You said 500 pages. Fully the last third of this book, that much of the book, is footnotes and appendixes.
Yes, and that's why none of the Soros minions have been able to refute a single fact that's in the book since it's been out for more than a month.
All right, we're live from the DoubleTree in Ontario with Michelle Malkin. This is the Jen and Don Show on AM590 The Answer. You're driving down the 10 freeway. Come here.
Show is starting back in 30 seconds. Please, everyone, sit down. Please, 30 seconds. Show's coming back in 30 seconds.
Visit our brand new website. Log on to jenanddonshow.com today. Now, here's Jen and Don.
We are back live from the Ontario DoubleTree with Michelle Malkin. This is the Jen and Don Show. And if you, there's a voice missing tonight on the Jen and Don Show, and that's my co-host, Jennifer. And a little bit of some backstory as to how we got put together. And I want to acknowledge the people that helped make tonight possible. So our listening audience, as you're driving home, you can keep these people in your mind. The first is Ed Hoffman. He has a radio show that airs on Saturday called The Main Event. The Main Event is must listening because I'll tell you what, Ed does a tremendous job of researching the topics that he includes, the sound bites. It's a show that's really well put together. So not only can you tune in live on Saturday morning at 9:30, but he's got a bunch of podcasts that are out there that are just great fun to listen to. Ed, as a business owner, has been investing in our community, supporting events like this. And a little known fact, the reason that we have the Jen and Don show in the first place is because Ed Hoffman was buying airtime on our radio station, AM590 The Answer, and had a little squeak of time left over on Saturdays. And back in the summer of 2013, myself and a number of other individuals that were here in this room decided that we needed to get better organized. So we created something called the Unite IE Coalition. And it was just conservative grassroots groups that would get together once a month in order to share best practices, learn better how to organize. Well, the manager at the time got wind of that and brought us in and said, you know what? There's an extra half hour of time on Saturdays, and I want to introduce you to Ed Hoffman and see if he would like to work with you to put together a show. And we met with Ed Hoffman, and and he said, yeah, I like you guys. And one of the people that was one of the founding members of that show is in the audience tonight, Greg Britton, sitting back there. He leads the Redlands Tea Party Patriots. Greg and I and the original co-host, John Barry, who's still involved but does military service, started the radio show on Saturdays in November of 2013, thanks to Ed Hoffman's investment in the conservative voice in the Inland Empire. And out of that, then, in November of 2014, that same manager came and said, I think we're going to have a slot on the lineup, and I've got an idea for a show. He introduced me to Jennifer. We did a pilot. They sent the pilot up to the programming managers, the bigwigs up in the rafters of Salem Media Group. They liked what they heard and said, but we need to make sure it wasn't a fluke. Do another pilot, because that sounded too good to be true. We did that pilot, and then they came back and said, go for it. And on January 5th, our very first broadcast of the Jen and Don show happened. And thank you, Ed Hoffman, for making that happen. Ed Hoffman and his bride, Dawn, who's here tonight. Make sure you say hi to him. Summit Funding in the back. The other sponsor of tonight's event is Adrian and Donovan. They're your health insurance superheroes. Go out, and if you need health insurance, if you're a business owner or you need information on Medicare, go see Adrian and Donovan. We are going to return, unfortunately, without our at-home audience. We're going to be live here with Michelle Malkin. If you're driving on the 10 freeway, there's still time to get off on Vineyard. Come over to the Ontario Doubletree and be a part of this great event. That's going to do it for us live on the Jen and Don show on AM590 The Answer. The fun continues at the Ontario Doubletree.